Guys, I need 20 seconds of your time before we go into today's presentation. I've been getting several emails and messages from our subscribers informing us that they are not receiving any notifications from YouTube about any new videos. Thankfully, there is a fix for that. I'd like to inform everybody to immediately go to our channel homepage and click the bell icon and select the option "Send me all notifications for this channel." The same procedure applies if you're viewing on a cell phone or tablet. This way you will not miss out on any new videos. Thanks for your patience. Now let's get to our presentation. Throughout his run as chairman of WWE, Vince McMahon has seen his fair share of ups and downs. Former wrestlers have either loved McMahon like a father or despised the way he did business with them. Despite some of the displeasures, McMahon has managed to keep a close relationship with a lot of the wrestlers, which include The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, and his son-in-law Triple H, just to name a few. With good relationships also comes some pretty bad ones, and today's presentation will look at 17 of these situations. Some are still a part of the company today, believe it or not, while others are long gone and will most probably never be seen or heard of again. Though when it comes to Vince, one thing's for sure: never say never. Let's now begin to look at who those wrestlers are. Number 17, Goldust. As most of you already know, the two are back on good terms today, but once upon a time, according to Goldust, this was certainly not the case. Goldust had a very difficult relationship with Vince, quitting the company twice and being fired once. During a shoot interview while being part of the TNA roster, Goldust finally let go, sounding off on his relationship with Vince. Dustin remembers a particular event which saw his father get inducted into the Hall of Fame. During the event, Goldust was introduced as Dustin Runnels, while his brother was introduced as Cody Rhodes. Goldust claims Vince took a jab at him by not referring to him as part of the Rhodes family. Goldust was none too pleased when talking about this situation. Goldust also commented on how badly the Owen Hart death was played off, calling it an absolute embarrassment to have continued the show after his death. He then concluded the shoot by describing Vince as someone that doesn't care about talent and only cares about money. Listening to this interview, you probably would have thought that it would have been impossible for the two to patch things up, but as you know, with Vince, nothing is impossible. It's just business. Number 16, Jesse Ventura. Vince loves his money. You don't become a billionaire without making some ruthless decisions. Therefore, Vince had no problems hating on certain wrestlers and taking things to court if it meant protecting his investment. Jesse Ventura was to bear the brunt of this financial muscle, but surprisingly came out the other side of the legal proceedings, something that angered Vince to no end. It all began years ago in the 80s during contract negotiations. Vince said he didn't pay out royalties, a statement that was coming back to bite Vince in the rear when the courts found he was being deceitful. Jesse won in the courtroom and is now entitled to royalties from WWE when the company refers to him or sells products with his name. This infuriated Vince, who has since done his best to eradicate Jesse from WWE wherever he can. He doesn't want to pay out a penny to one of the few men that went toe-to-toe with him in the courtroom and won. Number 15, Hulk Hogan. Vince McMahon has no other relationship like the one he has with Hulk Hogan. For nearly 40 years, the duo has had a love-hate relationship, which has resulted in multiple stints of bad blood between the two men. At its core, the connection the two men have is that each of them claims responsibility for the success of the WWE and, to an extent, wrestling itself. Because of this fact, both men have egos the size of an arena, which has led to Hogan departing the company 4 separate times, 2 of which saw Hogan competing directly against McMahon in WCW and TNA respectively. Hogan often complained of payoffs after leaving WWE, arguing that he should have been paid as much as a top star despite his older age. While his point is valid, McMahon would rather terminate the contract of the largest figure in wrestling than feed into his ego, as it would seem. Number 14, Bret Hart. Bret Hart signed a contract in 1996 that, if all went according to plan, would have kept him at the company for the next 20 years. Needless to say, things didn't go according to plan, and a year into the contract, things began to turn sour. Vince did his best to get Hart to leave the company. He came up with a plethora of reasons as to why he couldn't adhere to Hart's contract demands, didn't pay his full salary, and in the end, Hart had no choice but to bid the company farewell. Vince loved to antagonize Hart and knew how to push his buttons, often leaving him in the shadows while Shawn Michaels took center stage. Vince twisted the screws even further during Hart's last ever match with WWE, what would become infamously known as the Montreal Screwjob. Vince cheated Hart out of the title, and Hart left the company with a bitter taste in his mouth, but not before getting some form of retaliation and spitting on and punching Vince before embarking on a career with WCW. Number 13. Tyler Breeze. If Vince doesn't like you, it's only a matter of time before you start to slide down the pecking order. It's no secret, Triple H was very high on Breeze's wrestling ability and gimmick. Unfortunately for Tyler, after a promising start on the main roster, he faded off badly. Word backstage was that McMahon gave the gimmick a chance, but at the end of the day, he still hates the package that Breeze has brought to the main roster. This has led Breeze to losing his manager Summer Rae and finally ended up as part of Breezango. Unfortunately, he's no longer a talking point and his fan base is gradually declining by the day. Poor Tyler. Number 12. Nails. Bribery, fighting, and time in court sum up the relationship between Vince McMahon and former WWE wrestler Nails. The situation all started after Nails fought his match against Virgil at SummerSlam. Nails received a $9,000 check following his short SummerSlam matchup. Apparently Nails wasn't too happy with his pay, so he decided to pay the boss a visit. Nails barged into McMahon's office asking for more money, where he later choked McMahon when he declined to do so. Thankfully, other wrestlers and employees ran in and stopped the encounter before things could get worse. After this altercation, Nails was released. He later appeared in court against McMahon during the steroid case, claiming that Vince was in fact giving out illegal steroids to his employees. The charges were later dropped, and Nails was once again on the losing side of things. Number 11. Goldberg. We all know that Goldberg is selling huge in the WWE right now, however, this was not the case until Vinny and Goldie met in 2016. During an interview in 2015, Goldberg made it clear Vince McMahon and Triple H simply didn't like him. Goldberg went on to discuss how Vince hated him because he wasn't one of their boys and that he wasn't a team player. Goldberg went on to say that he regrets joining WWE for that period of time. According to Wade Keller, McMahon just never really bought into Goldberg's gimmick. What made things worse was Goldberg's inability and unwillingness to put other wrestlers over, which according to some of the WWE producers infuriated McMahon. Goldberg made the decision to leave WWE in 2004 and promised to never come back, but as we all know, never say never in wrestling. If Vince thinks somebody is huge money, he'll get them back, even if he is his enemy. Number 10. Rob Van Dam. Van Dam and Vince had a rocky relationship during their time working together. Problems began to emerge after RVD turned down a tour which was set to take place for the troops in Iraq. Van Dam told Vince he was looking forward to that time as a chance to finally relax during Christmas. Vince would tell Rob that this would be the best experience of his life and that he had to go. Following their encounter, Van Dam was so upset that he claimed to have wanted to fight McMahon. Van Dam later spoke to the head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis, and explained to him that he was not going no matter what. Van Dam ended up getting his way and did not go on the trip. RVD has said if the problem would have furthered, he would have fought Vince and left the company. The two are said to have a very rocky relationship to this day. Number 9. The Headbangers. The Attitude Era had some of the most revolutionary storylines in wrestling history, but at the same time, this era produced a lot of bad gimmicks as well. Mosh, one of the Headbangers, told that once you're out the door, Vince slams the door shut on your face. Once it was deemed that the Headbangers would not be re-signed, McMahon didn't give the duo the time of day and just let their contracts expire with minimal contact with the team. Mosh describes Vince as being a ruthless human, one that one day will be your best friend and the next day just disregard you. It's very doubtful that we'll ever see this pair in the Hall of Fame. Number 8. The Road Warriors. According to Hawk, Vince had a vendetta against the duo during their second run with the company. These allegations were not the first time former wrestlers claimed that McMahon had a vendetta against them. Hawk claimed that Vince's problem was that the tag team was too vocal backstage with other talent, especially when things weren't to their liking. McMahon allegedly made their second stint with the company a disaster on purpose. Despite all of these issues in the past, everything was put aside when the duo was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Animal's speech was very emotional, talking about his partner Hawk, who sadly passed away in 2003. As you will see in other entries, it's not the first time, nor will it be the last time that Vince patches things up with a longtime foe. Number 7. Bruno Sammartino. With Vince taking the company in a new direction, things fell apart between him and his father's longtime go-to guy, Bruno Sammartino. Bruno was not only furious with the direction that the company was going, but he was also displeased with McMahon's emphasis on physiques. Sammartino blamed Vince for the drug use in the WWE. As you can imagine, McMahon wasn't very pleased with these comments and allegations. It took the help of Triple H to finally get these two together in 2013. In that same year, Sammartino was finally inducted into the WWE's Hall of Fame. Bruno agreed to the induction because of the WWE's new family-friendly program. Number 6. Jeff Jarrett. I'm pretty sure Vince still hates this guy years after this event took place. McMahon really paid the price after forgetting that Jarrett's contract had expired. What made matters worse was the fact that Double J was the Intercontinental Champion at the time of his contract expiration. McMahon would try to plead with Jarrett on the appearance. Despite Vince's attempts, Jarrett refused to show up unless he was paid $300,000 for the one match. McMahon was basically backed into a wall because had he not agreed to this outrageous deal, not only would Jarrett have not have shown up to the event, but Jeff would have gone to Nitro and brought the title with him. Jarrett's ridiculous proposal was accepted, he showed up for the one appearance and dropped the title to Chyna. Many rumors claim that Jarrett and Vince Russo purposely extorted McMahon together, extending Jarrett's title reign for the money. Pretty sure we'll never see Jeff inducted into the Hall of Fame after this situation. Number 5. The Ultimate Warrior. Thankfully, these two were able to make up just before the Warrior's passing. Things got messy with Vince and his franchise player when Warrior demanded more money in 1991. Warrior wrote a handwritten letter telling Vince that he deserved more money. According to rumors, Warrior asked McMahon for an extra $500,000 or he would not attend SummerSlam. Shockingly, McMahon agreed to Warrior's insane requests. Only 2 months after agreeing to these conditions, Warrior was suspended by Vince for breach of contract. Warrior would end up quitting the company the very next day. He would return in 1992 and 1996 before finally leaving the company for good. Number 4. Randy Savage. As a big fan of the Macho Man, I would have wished that things would have gotten better between these two before the Macho Man's passing. Despite never really resolving their issues, Macho Man was inducted into the Hall of Fame after his passing. Problems between McMahon and Randy Savage arose after the Macho Man joined WCW, something he promised Vince he was never going to do. According to other rumors, McMahon never forgave Macho Man for sleeping with his daughter Stephanie, who was underage at the time. We'll never know exactly what happened, but it was nice to see the Macho Man get the farewell he deserved by the WWE. Number 3. Chyna. God bless her soul, Chyna, according to many current and former WWE wrestlers, is one of the sweethearts in the world of professional wrestling. The situation between Vince and her got very rocky after Chyna found out about Hunter's affair with Stephanie McMahon. After finding out, Chyna contacted Vince McMahon immediately to tell him about the situation, which Vince would respond with, "Well, I guess the jig is up." Chyna would show up to work on Monday in tears from the situation, and Vince would go on to tell her to go home and that they would work out a new contract. When Chyna got home, she received a fax indicating that they did not need her anymore. In 2012, Chyna responded to Vince with a series of tweets, posting things like, "You're a loser," and "abuser." Chyna also went as far as challenging Vince to a fight through Twitter. Putting everything between these two aside, Chyna most certainly deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame for all her work with WWE. She revolutionized the women's division. What do you guys think? Number 2. Daniel Bryan. Problems between McMahon and Bryan began to emerge during an episode of Raw in 2013. Vince was very displeased with the crowd reaction Daniel Bryan was getting while Triple H was cutting a promo. Vince never bought into Bryan's gimmick or look, so this factor made him very upset. After refusing to put Bryan in WrestleMania's main event, fans were outraged and made it very clear to Vince that they were unhappy. McMahon was finally forced into adding Bryan into the main event match, a match he would go on to win. The controversy didn't stop there. Fans were once again extremely upset when Bryan was eliminated during the Royal Rumble in 2015. Fans were so upset that the hashtag #CancelWWE Network was trending following the pay-per-view. This time, however, Vince didn't budge. According to Bryan, things have gotten better between the two. Although Bryan admits he's sure Vince didn't want to see him main event another WrestleMania match. Bryan stated Vince doesn't see him in the same light as a Cena or a Reigns. Number 1. CM Punk. Vince McMahon was furious with CM Punk following his shoot interview on Colt Cabana's podcast. CM Punk not only called out the WWE's product, but made some major allegations regarding the WWE's medical staff and personnel. Vince was also very upset with the way Punk left WWE. McMahon pleaded with Punk to stay, but ultimately that wasn't enough. Punk claims that to get back at him, Vince sent him his release papers purposely on the day of his wedding. McMahon called it coincidence and apologized for the error. Despite their differences, I have no doubt that McMahon would welcome Punk back with open arms following his stint with the UFC. Would you agree with our list? Please let us know if we've missed anything. Thanks for watching this presentation. If you like this video, please give us a like and post your comments below. Also, please subscribe for more such videos. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.